This is the kind of moment every superstar lives for. The game was already over. Wemby stood beside the bench, soaking in the admiration of his teammates, hands on his hips, towering over the moment. In what might be the wildest Western Conference Finals opener we've seen in the past decade, and it was only Game 1, Wemby already looked unstoppable. Wemby has led the Spurs back to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in 9 years, and they took Game 1 of the series. These were the 9 years they lost, and the 9 years that rebuilt them. The story begins, fittingly, with another Western Conference Finals 9 years earlier, May 14, 2017. Spurs vs. the Warriors in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. With 7 minutes and 55 seconds left in the third quarter, Kawhi Leonard rose for a corner jumper. As he landed, his left foot came down directly on Zaza Pachulia's foot as it slid underneath him. A sickening thud. Kawhi collapsed in pain, clutching his ankle, unable to get back up. He was helped off the floor, leaving behind a 78-55 lead, and a team that looked like its soul had just been ripped out. The Warriors stormed back, erasing a 25-point deficit. Then they swept the Spurs out of the series. No one could have known that one reckless closeout wouldn't just cost San Antonio a single game. It would mark the end of an entire era. What followed was a slow, painful collapse. Kawhi's injury created a trust fracture with the Spurs front office and medical staff that could never truly be repaired. Manu Ginobili retired the following year. Tony Parker left for Charlotte. Kawhi was traded to Toronto, and the return package of DeMar DeRozan and Jakob Poeltl became the first transitional pieces of the post-Big Three era. But the damage had already been done. The foundation had cracked. In the 2019-20 season, inside the Orlando bubble, the Spurs officially saw their NBA record streak of 22 straight playoff appearances come to an end after a loss to the Jazz. It was the cold, definitive end of an era. The next 2 seasons brought more disappointment, with back-to-back play-in exits. First the Grizzlies, then the Pelicans. Eventually, the Spurs front office realized patchwork survival was an illusion. The only way forward was a full teardown. In 2021, LaMarcus Aldridge and the Spurs agreed to a buyout. DeRozan left for Chicago in free agency. Within 4 years, even Derek White and DeJounte Murray, once viewed as foundational pieces, were traded away. At that point, every trace of the Spurs' identity, from the Duncan era to Kawhi to the post-Kawhi transition, had been stripped away. But rebuilding proved even harder than expected. A franchise once famous for elite drafting and player development kept missing early in the rebuild. From 2018 to 2022, only Jeremy Sohan, Keldon Johnson, and Devin Vassell remained from the Spurs' own draft picks. Then came the 2022-23 season. The Spurs fully embraced the tank. They finished 22-60, second worst in the league. Every loss was part of the gamble for a 14% shot at the #1 pick. Everyone knew exactly who they wanted: Victor Wembanyama. As a rookie in 2023-24, Wembanyama averaged 21.4 points, 10.6 rebounds, and 3.6 blocks. He was the unanimous Rookie of the Year and made first-team All-Defense. The rebuild accelerated immediately. In 2025, Greg Popovich stepped down as head coach because of health concerns, and assistant Mitch Johnson took over. Under Johnson, the Spurs went 62-20 in the 2025-26 regular season, finishing second in the West. That was the third best record in franchise history, behind only the 67-win 2016 team and the 63-win 2006 team, a 40-win improvement from the previous year. For the first time in 6 years, playoff basketball returned to San Antonio. In the first round, the Spurs handled Portland with ease. In the second round, they faced Minnesota. The series was wild, but the Spurs showed overwhelming dominance. They won 3 games by at least 29 points and eliminated the Wolves in 6. After waiting 3,287 days, the Spurs were finally back in the Western Conference Finals. Waiting for them was the Thunder, the league's best regular season team, undefeated through the first 2 rounds. On May 18, 2026, Game 1 tipped off in Oklahoma City. It felt destined to become an instant classic. The 2 teams traded punches all night, battling to the very end and forcing overtime. In the first overtime, Wemby drilled a deep three with 26.3 seconds left to tie the game at 108. In the second overtime, he completely took over. He scored 7 points, relentlessly attacking the paint and crushing any hope Oklahoma City had left. The game was over. Wemby stood beside the bench, hands on his hips. His jersey was soaked in sweat. The exhaustion of 48 brutal minutes couldn't hide the aura of total dominance. His teammates gathered around him, looking at him with pure admiration. From Kawhi collapsing in the 2017 Western Conference Finals, to Wemby standing at the center of the moment in the 2026 Western Conference Finals, 9 full years had passed. These were the 9 years they lost. They lost the continuation of a dynasty. They lost their place in the playoffs. But these were also the 9 years that rebuilt them. They cut themselves free from the past, endured the pain of tanking, and finally arrived at this moment.